I want you to think for a second about the one person, the one organization, the one team, the one celebrity, the one politician, whoever it is, that one person that you just can't forgive. You just, like, whoever it is, you know what they did, and everybody else knows what they did, and you can't forgive them. And for some of us, as soon as I say that statement, you think of, kind of some silly stuff. You think of, somebody, I don't know where you guys ended up on the whole Kendrick Lamar-Drake feud, and should somebody forgive somebody else? And some of y'all are going, I don't know who those two people are that you just said. But, there's all sorts of feuds and disagreements, and we can be upset about those things. There's sports teams that I still don't like because they beat my favorite team when I was 10 or 11 years old, so I just don't like them anymore. There's all sorts of different people that maybe different bosses that we had or different neighbors that we had. We just can't stand those people. And even if whatever it was that caused the problem in the first place has been addressed and taken care of, we still hold on to that, And for some of you, when I said, think about that one person that you have the most difficult time forgiving, there was some serious angst in your heart just now. You pictured that person that you're still struggling to forgive. Because we all have different levels of it, right? I mean, there's people that have either hurt me or hurt people that I care about, and I still I think I've forgiven them, but man, that hurt is still there. And there's some people that I got no reason to not like them. I was telling our Tuesday morning class a few weeks ago, I can't stand Baker Mayfield, and I actively cheer against him. I don't think that's affecting his life in any way whatsoever. He's a quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't think he's going out on Sunday morning going, man, I hope Marshall forgives me today. And the only reason I'm upset about it is because he did some obnoxious things when he was a college student. And I'm not letting go of it. You know who else did obnoxious things when they were a college student? But I'm going to hold that against him. We do that, don't we? We have different standards of who we choose to forgive and who we don't, and how much hurt we hold on to and how much we don't. And it's different for all of us. And yet we have that in common, don't we? That we all struggle with not only experiencing hurt, but dealing with that hurt when it comes to us. And how we choose to deal with the person who is the source of the hurt in the first place. And I want us to be thinking about that this morning as we continue. As Luke said, we're talking about our relationships and specifically this concept of recognizing that sometimes it's not you, that it's me that's a problem in our relationship. That we use this phrase, it's not you, it's me, to really kind of say, well, it really is you and it's your fault. But honestly, when there's problems in our relationships, whether it's a marriage, whether it's a dating relationship, issues between parents and kids, siblings, best friends, whatever it is, we got these different relationships where something goes wrong. There's some kind of distance, some kind of disconnect between the two of us. And often we want to point the finger and go, look at all the things that you did to cause this problem. And maybe, as we're going to acknowledge today, maybe sometimes that's even accurate. But the reason that the distance continues, the reason that the disconnect is still there, is not because of you, it's because of me. And we talked about how sometimes it's not you, it's my desire for control. I want to be in charge. I want to be in control of everything. I want to make sure everything goes the way I want it to. And that causes problems in a relationship. It's not you, it's actually my expectations. I have a picture in my mind of how this relationship is going to go, what it's going to look like, and how we're going to be and how we're going to function in this relationship. And you're not measuring up to my expectations. Last week we talked about how it may not be you, it may be me as far as really just my words. That I'm the things that I say or the tone that I say them with is creating problems between the two of us. And just recognizing that when there's distance, when there's a disconnection, when there's issues between me and you in this relationship that we're in, I need to recognize what I am doing to either cause or perpetuate the problem. And that's what we're going to talk about again today. That sometimes when there's problems in our relationship with each other, it's not you, it's me. More specifically, it's my inability to forgive. There's been a problem. There was some hurt that was caused. There was some pain that came up. And maybe we've even tried to address it. Maybe we've even tried to deal with it. But I'm still holding on to it. I'm not letting go of it. I keep bringing it up, or I keep thinking about it. I keep focusing on it. I keep bringing it back to mind, even if I don't say anything to you about it. And I keep viewing you through the lens of whatever it was that caused the problem in the first place. And it's caused me to lash out at you. It's caused me to be critical to you. It's causing distance between the two of us. It's causing this frustration and this anxiety and this tension that shouldn't be there. And it can happen in a variety of different kinds of relationships. It happens all the time in marriages. It happens in dating relationships. It happens between siblings. It happens between parents and their kids and kids and their parents. It happens with our friendships. Where something happens, there's a hurt, there's a pain there for whatever reason. And I just choose not to forgive. And it's my inability to forgive that keeps the problem, keeps the distance there, keeps it in the forefront. And I say this, my inability, and really what it boils down to is I'm just choosing not to. I say things like, I can't forgive that person. And you probably can. You're just not. I'm not saying it won't be, that there's no difficulty there. But it really boils down to whether or not I'm choosing to forgive you or not. And the issue here is, especially when we're talking about like which one of us is at fault. Is it you or is it me or is it both of us? The problem when it comes to our forgiveness is that in this instance, it might actually be you. You may have done something that was hurtful to me. You may have done something that's hurtful to somebody that I care about, and it caused a problem between the two of us. And maybe you didn't realize that you caused that hurt, or maybe you realize it and you try to make up for it, or maybe you thought that it was done, but I'm the one that's still holding on to it. And there's all sorts of reasons why I choose not to forgive, why I feel like I can't forgive you for whatever the thing was that you did or that you said. Maybe it's because you didn't apologize. You caused some hurt. You said something that hurt me. You did something that caused some pain between the two of us, and you never said you were sorry. And if you had just taken the time to say you were sorry, I would feel like you were sorry, and that would solve things. But you never did. You never apologized, or you never made any effort to even acknowledge that there was a problem. Or maybe you apologized, but you didn't apologize the way that I think you should. You should have said that you were really sorry. You should have bought me a gift. You should have done something. You should have taken some kind of action to show that you were really sorry. You didn't. I heard the words, but that's not really saying you're sorry. I mean, that's not really being sorry. And maybe you can take it a step further. I mean, you said you're sorry. You did something to try to make up for it, but I don't feel like you've been remorseful enough. You haven't been sad enough. You haven't groveled enough. You haven't begged for my forgiveness. You haven't gone out of your way to prove to me that you really are sorry. Do y'all hear how selfish that sounds? And yet that's what we do. I know you said you're sorry, and I know you think you've done everything you need to do to take care of it, but you haven't been sorry enough. Maybe I'm just like, you need to pay for it. You need to be punished in some way. I mean, that's justice, right? There's pains involved in that. If you hurt me, now I get to hurt you, or you need to experience some kind of pain, some kind of suffering to make up for the suffering and pain that you caused me. And until something goes wrong for you, until something bad happens to you, there's some kind of suffering and some kind of pain that you need to go through to make up for the pain and suffering that I've been caused. Maybe it's just the fact that the hurt is just still there. You may have tried everything you could to make up for it. You are sorry. You're remorseful. You've tried to repay it in some form or fashion. And I've even said, I appreciate it. We're done. I accept your apology. But man, that wound is still there. I mean, you know how it is when you get hurt, when you cut yourself, when you scrape yourself, and that spot just still hurts. Could be days, could be weeks, could be months, years later, and I still got this wound that's still there. It happens with our emotions too, doesn't it? You say something that hurt me, you say something that cut me. you do something that cut me. And even though I know you're sorry, I know you've tried to make up for it, and I know I should move past it, it's still hurting. And as long as the hurt is still there, the forgiveness is not. And these are just, that's just a handful of reasons why it makes it hard for us sometimes to be able to forgive. Why I keep bringing up the past, why I keep throwing that back in your face, why I continue to view you through the hurt and through whatever the issue was. And what ends up happening is that what may have hurt me is killing us. I want to say that again. What may have hurt me is killing us. Our relationship is dying because I won't let go of the hurt, because I won't let go of the memory, because I won't let go of the issue and the problem. And I want to say to you, it's you. It's not me. Because you did cause the hurt. You did cause the problem. And at least that's somewhat accurate. It was you. You said what you said. You did what you did. You didn't do what you should have done, whatever the issue is. You are at fault. But the real problem now is I'm not letting go. See the difference? I am unable to forgive for whatever reason. And here's, besides just the problems that causes between the two of us, it causes problems for me. Because here's what happens when I choose not to forgive, when I choose to keep holding on to anger, and when I choose to keep holding on to resentment. First thing is that I become a prisoner. I become imprisoned by my anger and my resentment. I become a prisoner to the past words, the past actions, or the past inaction. I become enslaved to that. I become imprisoned to it. And I feel like maybe even as I hold on to this resentment, you remember we talked about a couple weeks ago, this desire for control. I feel like I'm controlling the situation because I'm holding on to this anger, and maybe I'm manipulating you, or maybe I just feel like in that moment, whenever I experience a hurt, I lost control. I lost the ability to protect myself from getting hurt. I lost the ability to keep myself from experiencing some kind of pain that you were the source of. And now I want control back again, so I'm holding on to that anger and holding on to that resentment. And I think that I have control over the situation, over you. And honestly, it's my anger and my resentment that has control over me. And it is dictating my actions, and it is dictating my attitude, and it is dictating my words, and it is impacting our relationship. Because I'm holding on to the past. And that's not the kind of life that God calls us to live. It's not the kind of life that God gives us through Jesus. Paul says in Galatians chapter 5 and verse 1, this is one of my favorite verses. Paul says, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. The reason that Jesus came to this earth, the reason that he left the throne of heaven and came here, and the reason that he experienced all the things that he did and connected with all the people that he did and suffered all the things that he did, the reason that Jesus endured the torture that he did before he went to the cross, the reason that Jesus suffered the way he did on the cross, the reason that Jesus, the eternal one, allowed himself to experience death and to be in the grave for 3 days. The reason that he conquered death and rose again was to set me free. That's why. Period. I was enslaved to my sin. I was enslaved to my guilt. I was enslaved to my consequences. I was enslaved to hurt and to pain. Some of those things I brought on myself. Some of those things other people brought on me. But I was enslaved to those things, and Jesus Christ set me free. Paul says that's the whole reason. The whole reason God did what he did through his son Jesus was so that we wouldn't have to be prisoners anymore. So don't let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. There's a whole lot of things that could fit under that label. The yoke of slavery, the bondage. One of them is my anger, my resentment, my hurt. that I'm not letting go of, and ultimately is not letting go of me. I become a prisoner to it. I also become really bitter. My resentment, my anger, it creates bitterness in my heart. And my lack of forgiveness towards you, it creates bitterness in me, and that impacts other areas of my life. I mean, I told this church family before about the time that I got tricked into eating a caramel-covered onion that I thought was a caramel-covered apple. And I dug into the whole thing. I ate almost the whole thing. It's just raw onion that I got tricked into eating almost the whole thing. And it was at a youth retreat when that happened. And the problem was that even though, they tricked me, I fell for it. But man, that burning onion, that bitter burning onion taste stayed with me all weekend long. It was on my breath all weekend long. I smelled it in my sleep. That onion was there all weekend long. I would try to eat Oreos, and I'm still tasting a hint of onion on those Oreos. It was just there because I dove into it. When I dive into and hold on to my anger and my resentment, it creates that kind of bitterness that impacts other parts of my life. I become more negative, not just when I talk to you, when I talk to other people. I just become more pessimistic. I look on the downside of everything. I complain more. I'm less energetic. I'm just more rude to people. Why? Because I've become bitter. My resentment and my anger and my desire to not let go of it is now impacting other parts of my life. So Solomon says in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 9, do not be quick in your spirit to become angry, for anger lodges in the hearts of fools. Anger lives here. And when it takes residence, it impacts every part of my life. It impacts every relationship, not just the one between me and the person that I'm angry at. Does that make sense? When I also refuse to forgive, I also become disconnected. The relationship that we once had, it's not the same anymore. The closeness that we had, the bond that we shared, that sense of togetherness, the more that I hold on to my anger and my resentment, and the more that I refuse to forgive, the more disconnected I become, especially from you. And it can happen in our marriages. It can happen in our dating relationships. It can happen in our families. It can happen with our friendships. We become disconnected from each other because this thing continues to be there. Let me give you an example. Cade, come up here real quick. It's going to be really painless. You don't even have to say anything. This is my friend Cade. Cade and I have known each other for a long time. We've been friends for a long time, haven't we? I officiated the wedding ceremony between he and his wife. I've known them since they were in junior high, and we've had a lot of experiences together. There's some heart-to-heart things that we shared, haven't we? Yeah, there's some memories that we have that we probably won't share with anybody else. Cade and I, we're friends. But then this thing happened. This thing happened between me and Cade hurt my feelings. And something kind of came between us. And it wasn't that big a deal, but it hurt really bad, and I'm not letting go of it. And there's just this distance. We can't be as close as we once were. And here's the thing. The more that I hold on to that anger and the resentment, and the more that I refuse to let go, the more distance that creates. You hold the other end between the two of us. And we may still even be in this relationship with each other, but we're not as close as we once were. And we can't share like we used to. We can't be as close as we once were. Why? Because this thing is still between us that I am choosing not to let go of. I know this is a really simplistic illustration. But folks, this is what a lot of our friendships look like. This is what a lot of our marriages look like. This is what a lot of relationships between parents and kids look like. We're connected, but we're distant. And we can't get any closer. And we wonder why. Why do I feel so disconnected? Why do I feel so far apart? Why is it that I just feel like we're just not as close as we once were? It's because we still got this thing between us. And as long as I hold on to it and keep holding on to it, we're never going to be as close as we once were. That disconnection is never going to go away. Thank you, sir. That's all I needed you for. We're going to let go of it now. I become disconnected when I hold on to my anger and my resentment. But I also become disconnected from God. It's not just a disconnection from this person that I'm upset with, that I'm in this relationship with. I become disconnected from God too. Because here's what Paul says that we should do for each other in Colossians chapter 3. In verse 13, he says, bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. So he acknowledges, I might have a problem with you. You may have done something that caused me grief, and I may have every right to be angry and to be upset and feel hurt. But what does he say to do with that? Even though I have the right to be angry, even though I have the right to hold that over your head, even though I have the right to hold on to that bitterness and that anger, even though I have the right to want you to be punished for whatever it is that you did, what does he say? Forgive. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. God pours grace and forgiveness into my life. I make mistakes. I do things that I say I will never do. I do things that I say I will never do again. I do things that I know hurt his heart, and I do them anyway. I cause pain to the one who loves me the most. And he forgives me. He continually says, I forgive you. I love you. I'm letting go of this. Let me pour grace into your life. Let me pour forgiveness into your life. I'm washing this away. This is not going to be a problem for us anymore. And all I want for you to do, besides staying in this connection with me, is to pour that grace and that forgiveness that I'm pouring onto you into the lives of other people. I can't do that, God. Because don't you know what they said? Don't you know what he did? Don't you know how she treated me? Folks, I don't think that I can fully appreciate or experience the grace and the forgiveness that God gives me if I'm not willing to give that grace and forgiveness to someone else. And there's a disconnect between me and him because I'm holding on to this disconnection between me and you. Resentment causes me to be a prisoner. It causes me to be bitter. It causes me to become disconnected. It causes more problems in my life than I'm probably willing to admit or to acknowledge. So what do I do about that? Real quick. How do I get better at letting go? How do I get better at forgiving? When there's something that's come between us, how do I get better at consistently forgiving and pouring the grace and forgiveness into your life that I've received from God? Let me give you some steps really quick. You can write these down, screenshot them, look at them later on our YouTube page, whatever you need to do. First place I need to start is I need to pray for it. I need to pray for a willingness to forgive. I need to ask God for that. There was a famous Christian author and speaker named Tim Keller that died a few years ago, but I was listening to him talk about forgiveness recently. And he mentioned this story in the book of Luke that I had seen before and never really had paid attention to, a truth that he brought out in, and I want to share it with you this morning. So it's in Luke chapter 17, if you want to look at it, if you got your Bibles or your Bible apps. Luke chapter 17, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, those 4 books talk about the life of Jesus when he was here on this earth. In the book of Luke, Jesus is talking specifically with his disciples. And he says in verses 3 and 4, hey, you need to forgive. He says, if somebody does something hurtful to you, then confront them and say, hey, that was hurtful. But then he goes on in the next verse and says, if they say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, then you need to forgive them. And then Jesus goes on to say, and if they do it again, if they do the same thing, if they hurt you up to 7 times, and every single time they come back and say, please forgive me, you need to forgive them. And then there's this verse in Luke 17, verse 5. The very next verse after Jesus says that, the apostle said to the Lord, increase our faith. And Jesus goes on to talk about faith from there. For the longest time, I looked at that and thought the apostle was just kind of changing the subject. Like, okay, forgiveness, got it. Hey, you know what? We need more faith. And what I realized, especially after listening to Tim Keller talk about this, is that it's still in the context of what Jesus is talking about. Jesus says you need to forgive. You need to forgive people that hurt you. And you need to forgive them multiple times. And if they keep doing the same thing multiple times, and every single time they come back and say, please forgive me, you need to go ahead and forgive them. And the apostles are going, I can't do that. When the apostles say, Lord, increase our faith, they're saying, Lord, I don't have the faith that I think it takes for me to do what you're asking me to do. I need your help with that. I don't believe that I have the capacity to forgive like that. I don't believe in myself to be able to forgive in that way. Increase my faith. And you know what they're doing? They're talking to the Creator and saying, please help me have the willingness to forgive that you're talking about. Folks, that's where we need to start. If I recognize I've been holding on to anger and bitterness and resentment against something you did, whether you apologize for it or not, if it's causing a problem in my life because I keep holding on to it, then the first thing I need to do is go to my Father and say, God, increase my faith. Increase my ability to let go. Help me to believe in your forgiveness. Help me to believe that you can give me the ability to forgive. And God, give it to me. That's where we start. Second thing I need to do is to be honest with myself. I need to be honest with myself. I need to actually recognize and admit that I'm holding on to this anger, that I'm holding on to this bitterness. I may not have even paid attention to how much it's been an issue, how much it has impacted my life, or maybe even other relationships. I need to stop and take an honest look at my life and an honest look at my relationships, and I need to be honest with myself. I need to acknowledge this is a problem, because I'm not going to deal with it until I acknowledge it. David says in Psalms 51 and verse 3, he says, I know my transgressions. My sin is always before me. David says, I know the things that I've done wrong. I know the mistakes that I've made. I acknowledge it. I'm not a perfect person. I'm aware of it. Here's my question, folks. Do I recognize in my own self my inability to forgive? Have I taken the time to look at my own heart and see what kind of anger I'm holding on to? I need to be honest with myself about that. And then I need to be honest with them, whoever this person is. Whoever has caused the hurt, whoever it is I'm angry with, whoever it is that I have resentment towards, I need to be honest with them. This is a problem. It's not your fault. You did the thing. You apologize for it. I'm struggling. And I need your patience, and I need your love, and I need your compassion so that I can be compassionate towards you. I need to address it with them. I need to stop pretending there's nothing wrong. I need to be honest about it. When my spouse says, I don't know why there's this distance, this disconnect between us, and I shrug my shoulders and go, I don't know, it's the weirdest thing. I need to be honest with them. I'm hurting right now because of fill in the blank. I have that same conversation with my kids, with my friends and coworkers. If there's an issue, I need to address it. I need to be honest about it. And not accusatory and go, you messed up and you should know what you did. That's not what I'm talking about. Being honest with them about my struggle to forgive. That's what James calls us to in James chapter 5 and verse 16. James says, therefore, confess your sins to each other. Confess. Share with each other the things that you're struggling with. And pray for each other so that what can happen? Healing. We can heal this relationship if I'm honest with you about it and about the problems between us and the things that I'm holding on to. So I need to pray for a willingness to forgive. I need to be honest with myself. I need to be honest with you. And then I need to let it go. I know that sounds really simplistic, but man, that's just real. And it really is that simple, even though it's one of the hardest things to do. Let it go. Quit bringing it up. Quit focusing on it. Quit thinking about it. Quit throwing it in the other person's face. Let it go. Paul says in Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 31, get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Get rid of it. Throw it away. Toss it. Walk away from it. Be done with it. I used to have this Harding University hat. When I originally had it, it was pure white. It said Harding University on the front of it. And I wore that thing everywhere. I wore it, just doing yard work. I wore it to, youth events and Green Valley Bible Camp and all sorts of places. And within a little bit of time, that hat was no longer white. It was dirty. It had dirt. It had stains. It had paint. It had sweat lodged in it. And I refused to wash it. Like, this hat shall never be washed. I don't even know why that was the thing, but I was just like, we're not washing that hat. My wife would say, can I please wash that hat? No, you can't. Well, then I'm going to throw it away. No, you're not. I held on to that hat for years, and it became brown. It was a brown hat. And even when I went out to a really humid place like Green Valley Bible Camp, it would immediately, like the hat would turn wet because there was so much leftover sweat still lodged in it. See, I know. It grossed other people out. They didn't want to come near me when I was wearing the hat. That hat caused some distance between me and other people. You know why? Because I wouldn't let it go. Eventually that hat got thrown away. It can be the smallest thing. Maybe seemingly to myself or somebody else, the most insignificant thing that is causing distance between the two of us because I refuse to let it go. And you don't want to come around me, and we can't be connected with each other because I refuse to let the mistake and the hurt and the pain and the resentment, I refuse to let it go. And until I let it go, it's going to continue to be a problem. So let it go. And then lastly, I need to find a way to bless this person. Whoever caused the hurt, whoever caused the pain, I need to find a way to bless them. And I think this is where we fall short of the full forgiveness that God calls us to show to other people. Because even when I let it go, I mean, Luke can attest to this as a counselor. That's very therapeutic. It's good for me to let go of things from my past. And maybe I need help. I need to go to a counselor or a therapist or something to help me let go of some things, some hurts from my past. That is very therapeutic, but that's not where Jesus stops. I mean, Paul says we need to let go of bitterness. That is in the Bible. That is truth. I need to let it go. But Jesus says not only that, when we're talking about forgiveness, we take it a step further. Because what does Jesus say in Matthew chapter 5? But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. I don't just let go of the hurt. I do something to bless your life. I do something to show you love and compassion and kindness. I do something good for you. I pray for good things to happen to you. Because that's what true forgiveness is all about. That's the kind of forgiveness that God has shown me. God doesn't just look at me through the blood of his son Jesus, through that sacrifice on the cross, and look at me and my mistakes and go, well, I'm not going to hold that against you. And that's it. What does my God do? Not only am I going to hold that against you, not only am I going to wipe the slate clean, but I'm going to bless you. I'm going to give you joy. I'm going to give you peace. I'm going to give you blessings that you never even realized that you needed. I'm going to pour good stuff into your life. That's what true forgiveness is. I'm going to absorb the pain and the hurt myself, and I'm going to choose to let go of it. But I'm not going to expect anything in return from you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go out of my way to try to bless you. That's the biggest step, folks. The most difficult one for us, I think. We pray about it, we're honest about it, we let it go, but to truly forgive and look like our Father in the way that he forgives, we pour good stuff into the life of that person. I need to wrap up. I hope that we can be forgiving people. I hope that we can just in our marriages, in our family dynamics. I hope that we have conversations this week. Maybe it starts with a text or an email today. Maybe it's finding somebody in the lobby as soon as church is over. Maybe it's sitting down on the couch when we get home today. with our spouse, with our family member that we've been angry with for so long. And we start dealing with it today. I'm losing a battle with a tree in my yard at my house. It's this big Bradford pear tree. And we've got this brick, circle around it with mulch and stuff. But outside of those bricks, there keep popping up these little stems with leaves on them. I thought it was weeds. And so I kept, just mowing over them and trying to pull and stuff. And I realized those are new branches from the roots of this tree. They're going out past my barrier of bricks and mulch. You understand what I'm saying? And they keep popping up. And I'll pull those leaves, or I'll cut them, or I'll mow over them, and they seem to be gone, but then they pop back up again. And I'm losing this battle with these roots. It's not doing anything about the roots themselves. They keep causing the problem. See this and I'll be done. Hebrews chapter 12, the author of Hebrews says in verse 15, see to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. Why does this disconnection, this anger, this tension keep popping up between me and my spouse, between me and my kids, between me and my friend, between me and this person I'm dating? Why does it keep coming back again and again? Because I'm not dealing with the root of it. I haven't forgiven. I'm not letting go. And as long as that still has root in my heart, it's going to keep popping up in my relationships. So I need to be done with it. I need to cut it out. I need to get rid of that anger and that resentment. And maybe it's God that's going to be the one, I know it's God that's going to be the one that's going to make that happen. To clean out that junk that's in my heart so that it doesn't keep popping up again and again. And that's what we invite you to experience this morning. We're going to stand up together in just a second. We're going to sing a song together. And we're going to offer the opportunity to you. If there is anger and resentment in your heart that you've held on to for so long, and it is causing distance and it is causing problems between you and this other person, or just problems in your life, maybe in other relationships, you are welcome to come to the front and say, I'm ready. I'm ready to let go. I'm ready to be honest. I'm ready to forgive. I need help. And this church family will surround you with love and support and whatever help we can give. And trust and believe that our God is going to answer that prayer starting today. And if you just don't feel comfortable coming forward and sharing that, I hope you do. But if you don't feel comfortable coming forward and sharing that, come find me after worship. Find one of our shepherds. Maybe even just talk to the person sitting down the row from me this morning. This is a problem for me, and I want help. I need help. Like I said, maybe it's a conversation that needs to happen after worship today. Maybe sometime this week you go get coffee with that person that you've had trouble forgiving. Let's get rid of these bitter roots that keep popping up in our relationships. And let's start today. And let this church family help if we can while together we stand and sing.